sometimes is the preparation that you need to be successful in life. So I use that wood story all the time. The thing that you hate the most, you do it faithfully, you do it to the best of your ability, and you keep doing it.
Today we talked to a guy that was one of my teachers in high school, Terry Roller. So Terry has been in the education system here in the state of Alabama for 29 years and now is helping teachers. But we go through a journey and stories, as much as anything, stories about how important our schools are. But the main thing I took away from this whole sit down was that the time from 8 to 3 is important, but the time from 3 to 6 in a child's life, in a school's life, in a coach's life is essential. And we go through a bunch of stories and the journey of what Terry's helped do and the miles he's traveled and the lives he's impacted in the 30 plus years that he's been in education. You are going to love this episode with Terry Roller. Terry, thank you so much for joining me today. So here's the hard part about this.
I'm so excited.
Is I really don't know him as Terry because my first interaction with Mr. Roller was when I was in high school.
That's right.
So Mr. Roller was a teacher at the high school, and everybody's got the teacher at the high school was a cool guy. So Mr. Roller was tall, dark, obviously, super handsome, super fit.
Super fit.
Super fit.
30 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
And all the girls liked him. All the guys liked him. He was funny, he was cool, but he identified with everybody.
That's right.
Black, white, girl, boy, all of it.
Rich,
poor. We didn't have, when we were at Hueytown High School at the time, so it was a pretty good mix. Probably a 65-35 white-black mix.
So that's interesting that you say that because most of the time people will look at a school and judge it by the front porch, which is athletics.
Yes.
And so you see mostly African-American kids on the football team. You think the school's predominantly black, but it was probably about 30%. So that's a good call.
Yeah. So, and it's shifted since then, but in late 90s, that's what it was. It was a great place. Really good place. A lot of good teachers there. So Terry lives here in Birmingham, has had an interesting journey through education, but has transitioned out of education as far as working for the system.
That's right.
And he's a business owner now.
Yeah. Well, so I work for a consulting company, but you run it like you would run your own piece.
It's your deal.
That's right.
It's your deal. Right. Before we get into that, let's go back.
That's right.
Let's talk about like growing up. Where'd you grow up? The sports, the parents, all the things. Let's give me the snapshot of that.
Well, so let's start at the beginning. So my mom, Linda, was married at 17.
Wow.
Still in high school with my brother. And we are about 9.5 months apart because I came 2 months early. 4 pounds, heart issues. They said probably would be developmentally delayed, didn't walk for a long time, didn't speak. And,
hold on, you didn't walk for a long time and you didn't speak.
That's right. The doctor actually told my mom that this baby's gonna die, so I'm in the NICU with tubes and things all over me. You got to remember, this is early 70s. This is 71, right? And what's so really just heartwarming and heart-tugging for me, that's about the time of Roe v. Wade. Yeah. So a lot of women were not following through with pregnancies at that age. Sure. And so very grateful that, my mom had great parents and great family, and she got married because that's what you did back then.
Oh, yeah.
And she had her 2 boys. Left my dad. Alcoholism runs in our family. Yeah. I actually did not touch a drop until I was 30 because of that, 30 years old.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
So same way with me. And you probably knew of my father.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable football coach.
Oh, yeah.
But always battled alcoholism. And I was the same way.
That's right.
So I did not have a drink of alcohol till I was 38.
Well,
why did you not?
Well, so here's what's funny, because we moved away. My mom divorced my dad, loaded us up, drove to Boston, Massachusetts. And I lived there until I was 11. We abruptly one day moved back to the South, and my stepfather died. And what I didn't know is that he was dealing with kidney failure, and he died shortly after we returned. So we went from being poor to abject poverty at that point, and we would, go back and forth with my dad's side of the family. And I knew when he smelled like alcohol, whatever came next would be a lie. And I said, you know what? I don't want to live my life like that. So whatever he's doing, because what I learned the hard way was abusive, alcoholic, neglectful, parent experience will be a teaching experience for you. They'll either teach you what to do by you mimicking their behavior, or they'll teach you what not to do by watching their behavior. So I said, I don't want to do that. I had some great coaches, but I want to pause because I want to talk about your father for 1 second. So I'm from the Bessemer area, and Coach Cox was legendary. Okay. Everybody loved your father. So my cousins played for him. And at the time in the mid 80s, if you were in Bessemer and you were connected to Lanier High School, you were the man. So your father had an amazing reputation, and so many people respected him. And so when I started teaching, and I said, I got Coach's boy here. Are you serious? I have Coach's boy here. So I've always felt like you were my little brother from that standpoint, just because of your father's legacy in the Bessemer area. So I loved the time that I spent with you and your sister at Hueytown. And I felt connected because all of our families played for your father. So that was kind of cool. And it's been great to watch your rise and your trajectory, because I still feel like that's my little brother, Tom.
Hey, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, I grew up in the Bessemer area, and, court-ordered integration. They kind of moved county people around. We went to Shades Valley. Best experience of my life. Loved it. And, what's so interesting about it is
Shades Valley back then
was on 280. Yeah.
Shades Valley was right up 280, 280, 450, not 280, 230.
Yeah. That's right.
Realize that.
That's right.
But they were an unbelievable high school academically and athletically at the time.
That's right.
That's where everybody was.
It was a great place to be.
Yeah.
And what was so interesting for me, the juxtaposition of this whole experience for me was our grandparents and aunts cleaned houses in the community where I live now. So the people that I went to school with were not my peers from my neighborhood because we were bussed in.
Sure.
But now I live in that very neighborhood. So it's kind of full circle.
That's good.
To realize that I had that experience of education in a great place in Shades Valley. Now that is my community. So I know all the people already. I grew up with them from school. And but it just shows the value of education, how you can truly have that American success from rag to riches story, and embed yourself in the community. But athletics was a pivotal part. We had great coaches. And, I'd seen some research early in my career that said, a child of poverty needs about 5 men outside of their family to help them be successful. And what I found is that not a child of poverty, but any child that can have 5 quality men outside of their family working with them will have a much greater shot of being successful. And if you're lucky, you'll call him coach, just like your father. Wow. Right? Because we all have that story. I have some great coaches in my life, and still talk to them.
Who's the biggest influential coach you had?
Well, so we call him a coach. Yeah. And anybody that knows me or watches this on Instagram or Facebook will know exactly who I'm talking about. A guy named Jim Richards. Okay. And I'd gotten in some trouble. And my mom booted us out and made us go stay with my dad, whose girlfriend immediately said, yeah, they can't stay. Right. So you got a couple days to get them out here. Yeah. And my junior high coach came looking for me. He's like, Linda, where are these boys? It's like, they had to go. They're with their father. And he's like, but you don't understand. I need those boys. Yeah. I'm working those boys out. They're playing for me. I need those boys. Yeah. And she said, well, that's too bad. They're with their father. And he said, well, if you give them to me and let me have them, I'll make those boys into men. He was building a house in Blount County. He came and got us. We stayed with him over the summer. We helped him build his house. What? I'm talking about literally in the summer, in June, digging a 200-foot water line with flush slides and slope bottom, and it had to be perfect, 2 feet deep, 200 yards. And I said, you know what? I'm going to college. So I knew in 7th grade, regardless of what happened academically or athletically, I was going to college because I learned the value of hard work right there.
And you didn't know you didn't want to do that.
Oh, best thing that ever happened to me, because what I realized then was I knew I was going to teach from 3rd grade. Right?
Really?
Oh yeah, I knew I would help kids. Kids. But when I met Coach, I wanted to be him. So he's still in my life today.
Is he really?
He's my godfather. He's my son's godfather. He comes to his grandparents' ceremonies at school. He goes to his art awards and goes to his games. And so just a really great man that made huge sacrifices, right? Wow. Gave back to the community, fell in love with a couple Black kids from Lipscomb, Alabama. And, they turned out to be, Lipscomb, Alabama. Wow. Man. Yeah, and just turned out to be just a fine man doing great work for boys.
So at 3rd grade, you knew you wanted to teach. Yeah. Talk to me about the journey through high school, the sports you played.
So it's funny because I tell people all the time, back then we didn't have all kids insurance. So we didn't have insurance. And my mom tells me one day, she said, if you ever break one bone, your athletic career is over. So I don't know if you can see that, Tom.
I do. Oh, I do.
So I broke that.
Show that.
So I broke this one. And I never told her. I just taped it up and kept playing basketball because I did not want to quit sports because it was so important. It was my identity, right?
Sure.
Self-esteem, self-identity, and self-worth for boys oftentimes comes from how they perform athletically.
Absolutely.
So I was not telling her I broke that finger, right? And I broke it repeatedly over the year because I kept playing. And so I figured I had a better chance with basketball than football with hiding injuries. So
But
I
you
played
were
basketball.
so big. Were you
Yep.
big in high school?
So I actually was so funny. I finished high school at about $180, right? So we had sports festival that summer. I boxed in sports festival. Coach got me boxing, so I had some success doing
Yeah.
that. I ended up doing a junior college tryout. I had to join the Army, believe it or not, the late entry program. And my brother was already gone. He was on his way to Kuwait. This was Desert Shield. And when I got my scholarship, the agreement was if I got a basketball scholarship, they would release me. So I signed a scholarship with Brewer State Community
Yeah.
College. They released me from my military commitment, and I played 2 years of community college basketball.
How about now? What
Yeah.
did you do after that?
So after that, I shot myself around. I really had no
Yeah.
adult intervention to help me shop myself around. I think I wrote about 150 colleges,
Hey, man.
made tapes, mailed stuff out. A guy named Bobby Hathcock was my coach the first year. He left. We got an interim in. We were kind of on our own. Probably had 7 or 8 schools that recruited me.
Yeah.
Milligan College in Johnson City, Tennessee, and Montreat Anderson College in Black Mountain, North Carolina. And a lot of these places were like, we'll give you, 5,000, 7,000. And there was no way I couldn't
Couldn't do that.
So really, honestly and truly, and this is something that I always tell kids all the time, I think I went through a little bit of depression because something that I'd wanted to do my whole life was ending. And I had to make a decision that I got to walk away now because I have a sister that's 4 years younger than me. And I couldn't keep pulling from the family resources. So came home, got my job back as a personal trainer at a place called Sports Medicine and Fitness in Vestavia. Great man named Russ Paul Hemus
Yeah.
brought me back. Russ brought me back in, and
That guy right there now in Birmingham was
yeah.
a huge name back in the 80s and 90s.
oh man, we trained some amazing kids. I actually saw Wesley Brett the other day, and I trained Wesley Brett at 9 years old. So it's kind of neat to see, kids that you train still out
Killing
and
it.
about and around
Yeah.
that just did very well. And so I did that and enrolled in college and got my 2 years done at UAB. Went on, started teaching.
So you had to go get a job and pay for
Oh
college.
yeah. Oh yeah.
I love it.
So I called my dad one time. He said, "Hey son, I got you. I'm going to put some money on your school. Just go ahead and enroll, just enroll, do it. So I enrolled. Came time for the bill. I went to find him when he got off work. All of his money was gone. They spent his check already. And I said, this will be the last time that you get me. I will never ask for anything else again. So I just gotten that outrageous 25% interest rate credit card that they give college freshmen.
When you walk in the door.
Oh yeah, they gave me that thing and I paid my tuition with it. Worst mistake of my life. And I said, I'll never do that again. So I worked 3 jobs and went to school full time and dressed up because we took night classes once I got in the School of Education. So I'd go with a little shirt and a little tie because I was serious about my job. Had a little briefcase, nothing in
Love it.
Nothing in it, but I looked the part, right? Because I knew somebody was always watching.
Sure.
And my first job was Miss Reach. Do you remember Miss Reach?
Yes. Kay Reach.
Kay Reach.
She was the principal.
She was the principal. She lived in Lipscomb. And she sat me down. She said, hey, come over here to this interview. Well, the interesting part about that was every day on my lunch break in a T-shirt and shorts, I would go to Jefferson County and go, hey, I know it's supposed to be dressed up. Hey, I'm on my lunch break. Got a job for me? And I went every day on my lunch break. And
to find a job at Jefferson County Board of
in
Education.
T-shirts and shorts and tennis shoes. And this guy said, hey, man, put on a suit. I said, I don't own one, but as soon as you hire me, I'll buy one. And I kept going every day. And the personnel director waved me to the back. And I walked in. She said, I don't know who you are, but you show up every day. Right? So when you hear people say,
you've got a degree at this point.
I have a degree. And she said, if you come back, I will give you a job. So I come back. She said, here are the choices. I go to Hueytown. I call Kay Reach and she says, hey, come over here on Monday. I said, yes, ma'am. What time? She said, oh, I don't know. I get there about 8. I said, okay, I'll be there at 7. She said, you don't understand. I get there at 8. It's summertime. I said, yes, ma'am. I'll be in the parking lot waiting on you. I'm going to walk you to the door. She said, that's not necessary. I said, yes, ma'am.
Yes,
I'll
ma'am,
be
it
there.
is.
I'll be there at 7. So when she got there, I walked her to the door. We sat down and we talked. And when she found out I'm from Lipscomb, she said, I'm from Lipscomb. I said, there's no way. She said, nothing good comes out of Lipscomb.
That's what she said?
Yeah. And she's the principal, right? Of course she was being facetious.
Sure.
But she said, I'm going to give you a shot. You came early. They tell me that you won't stay out of the office because you want a job so badly. You're from Lipscomb. I know you're going to work hard. I'm going to give you this job. I signed a commitment letter at 8:15 because we used to do that back then. I drove it back to the board office and got hired. 3 days later, Homewood offered me a job. And I said, hey, you know what? I appreciate it, but I'm staying at Hueytown. They called me at the end of that year and offered me a job again. I said, hey, Dr. Newton, I love you. Thank you. I love your coach. I love your boys. Thank you. But I'm going to stay at Hueytown because they believed in me first.
What year was this?
So this was 94, 95.
So hold on one second. So your job, when you got there, when I was there, that was your first job.
22 years old. They gave me seniors and freshmen. So I was 4 years older than the kids I was teaching.
The kids you were teaching.
And they were tough. But that's the best training experience I ever had in my life.
Was that an easy school?
No, it was not an easy school.
Why?
I think because there was so much competition economically. You know, in the South, we used to talk about race all the time.
Yeah.
I love that because being from New England, you didn't really do that. Right?
Sure.
And what people don't understand is you have all these little compartmentalized communities in New England and New York and all these other places. And so you stayed in Chinatown. You stayed, you know, South Boston was Irish. You stayed in your pocket. But in the South, you talk, right? And so you could say things, right? And so when I started in Hueytown, very much a lot of economic competition between dads working in the mines, or working in the steel industry, or working in the byproduct processing plants. And so those dads would fight at work and their kids would fight at school. And so there was a lot of tension. And so you learned how to manage race and deal with kids and be compassionate and loving and aware, you know, but it was a tough gig. Best gig I ever had.
How long were you there?
So I was in Hueytown, I think 6 years. Left there, went to Thompson when it was in Shelby County.
Okay.
That's where I made my bones, baby.
Yeah.
I had a great time at Thompson.
So how long were you at Thompson?
I was at Thompson 3 years, and we would sit at the end of the football games, and I had this old guy that was a principal. Old guy, very old. You know, you figure I'm 29, right? This guy's 52.
Oh, ancient.
Oh, he was ancient. By the way, I'm 52
You're
now.
52 now.
And so this guy would say these things, these little platitudes and all these great sayings. I was like, this guy's so smart. How will I ever do this? I'm not going to be able to do this. But I did everything but sign checks the first year and hire people. The second year, I started signing checks and hiring people. And the third year, I started being recruited. And it was the best experience of my life. And I love to tell this story because at the time, you know, I'm 29 years old.
Yeah.
And coach calls me.
Are you married at the time?
So I'm divorced at the time. I had gotten married at 22 and was divorced by then.
Okay.
And so I needed a fresh start.
Sure.
And so coach calls me and he says, hey, I hurt my back, but I promised my professor at Montevallo a load of wood. Will you come up and help me cut wood? And this is the same coach that took me in.
Took you in when you were 7th grade, yeah.
And it was so funny because we had a wood burning heater at my house.
Okay.
And so we would get on the bus at 6:30 in the morning and we would go all the way to Shades Valley, get there at 8:05, always be late. You know, it was terrible, right? But I learned to cut that wood so fast and so efficiently because when I got home from practice, I had to ride the bus at 7:30 or 8 at night, still had to do homework. I knew 24 pieces of wood would keep me warm all night. Man, I could split that wood so fast.
Really?
I would get in, I'd take my stuff, put it down, go cut those 24 pieces of wood. And see, my brother that was 1 year ahead of me did it all the way until he went to the Army. So now it's my senior year and I have to do it, but I'm still playing ball. So I'd bust that wood up, man. I'd get it in there, make the fire, try to do some homework, go to bed, back on the bus stop at 6:30 in the morning. Same thing, right? But I got good at cutting wood. So I go up there with coach and I'm splitting the wood, you know. It's kind of like that scene with, you know, with Captain America and Iron Man cutting wood, right?
That's right.
Tony Stark's over there and he's like barely cutting the wood and Captain America's hitting it once and it explodes into 4 pieces.
That's right.
So I was doing that. And there's a guy with coach and every time I put a big log up there and I'd hit it, boom, it explode 4 pieces, perfect 4 pieces. and it's hot. So I take my shirt off, I'm all muscled up, 29 years old, and I'm busting that wood up, and I'm benching probably at the time 410.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm working out with Willie Wyatt, and anybody still in Hueytown knows Mr. Stewart.
Yeah.
Those guys were beasts, right? So I'm
sure.
benching 410. Man, I'm killing this wood. I leave, and there's a job opening at Thompson, right? And so the guy cutting wood with Coach knows the board president at Shelby County Schools. That's who we're cutting the wood for. They take the wood to the guy, and the guy's like, yeah, I got this opening for assistant principal at Thompson. We're having a hard time filling it. And the guy's name was Bobby, and he looks at me and says, I don't know who you're going to hire, but I just met a kid cutting wood, and if he works as hard in your school as he did cutting wood, you're going to turn that school around. I get a phone call to go interview with him. He gives me 2 minutes and he leaves. Next thing I know, I get the job at Thompson.
How about as an assistant principal?
As an assistant principal.
At 29.
So the thing that I hated the most, cutting wood, sometimes is the preparation that you need to be successful in life. So I use that wood story all the time. The thing that you hate the most, you do it faithfully.
Wow.
You do it to the best of your ability, and you keep doing it. Like I tell people all the time, when you're walking through hell, why would you stop?
Yeah.
Keep walking,
Keep
baby.
going.
Just keep going. So keep cutting the wood, keep busting that wood up, keep splitting it into 4 perfect pieces, keep stoking that fire.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you'll be where you need to be, and you might get the job that you were looking for. Getting that job at Thompson transformed my career. Took off from there. I was 32 years old and principal at Lincoln High School in Talladega County.
Lincoln.
I did that for a decade almost.
Hey,
Loved
that's
it.
where you met Ted.
Ted Darby. No, met Ted Darby,
Hueytown. But you worked with Ted.
Mm-hmm.
So let me say this. No, I haven't talked about Coach hardly at all, but Ted Darby was one of the most influential people in my life as far as, he's probably in that top 5 as far as, especially my athletic career, because Jeff Smith and Mike Battles.
That's right.
They spoke to my soul.
Correct.
Ted Darby spoke to my brain.
That's right.
Because he was an unbelievable quarterback coach.
Correct.
And so the fundamentals of the position,
That's right.
I learned from him.
And player.
Yes.
And competitor.
Oh, competitor.
And motivator.
Yes.
And children love him.
Wonderful human being. Hard as a cob.
Hard is not the word.
Listen. So
He's
how did
brutal.
how did you get back reacquainted with him?
So Ted Darby comes up to me my first day teaching. He said, "You're a big old boy." Because again, that's how we talk to people in the South, right? I said, "Oh, yes, sir." He said, "Boy, you're too soft. You let these kids push you around. You need to be a man. Stand up, poke your chest out, and don't take anything from them. I'm not going to stand around and watch you get run over by these kids." First day of school. I'm thinking, what in the world is going on?
Guy?
This dude is crazy. And then he said, "Now I'm going down here to talk to these investment guys, and you come with me and we're going to invest our money." Yes, sir. So I followed him on down.
This is when where are you at?
This is at Hueytown.
Oh my God.
First day of school, right? So I'm like, okay, coach. And so he really, really, really changed how I went from being just a student myself to being the leader of children, right? And then eventually the leader of men. He was an incredible motivator. So that was the best year I ever had working with Darby. So I go back to the Talladega area, and later I become superintendent of Talladega City Schools, and he's on campus as a coach. And we had a coaching change, and I said, "Coach, you transformed my career, and it has never been the same. So you're now the head coach." And man, we had a great run. We made the playoffs for the first time in 30 years.
What school?
Talladega City Schools at Talladega High School.
He was at Talladega. I did not
So he
realize
actually,
that.
I hired him as the head coach at Talladega High.
How long was he there?
Yeah. So he did 2 years.
Yeah.
And then I went from there to the State Department of Education.
That's right.
I was an assistant state superintendent. I was in charge of school takeover. And so they call that position the Chief Administrative Officer of the state. I was selected by Dr. Eric Mackey. Greatest thing that has ever happened to my career in leadership.
So let's go back to that.
Okay.
So you, teachers, teacher, assistant principal.
Yep.
And then you went to Talladega, and now you're a principal at
I'm
this
a
school.
principal.
Okay.
For almost a decade.
So why?
Yeah.
I want the honest, transparent answer. Why did we transition? Because you're leading kids.
Yeah.
You're even leading adults.
Man, that's a great question.
Why did you transfer from being a principal into the front office? Is it okay? And I'm just going to ask the question that everybody. Is it a money grab?
So it is, but it isn't.
Okay.
Right. And so I always go back to that story, Schindler's List. I don't know if you've seen Schindler's List.
Long time
One
ago.
of the greatest movies ever. I encourage everybody to go back and watch it. And I learned from all my really smart teacher friends, whatever you see in the beginning of a story, you're going to see it at the end. You know, the imagery and the symbolism. And so when that movie opens up, you see Oscar Schindler, he's putting on his suit. He's getting ready for something, no dialogue at all. He's getting dressed. He puts on his Nazi party cufflinks and he puts on his tie pin and he puts on his Nazi party ring. And you know instantly watching this that stuff is important to him. He goes on, he ends up being a profiteer of the war. He's building munitions. He gets convicted. He starts, you know, rescuing these people. They work in his factory to not make bombs to blow up and not make bullets to fire. And so he's basically squandering his fortune to save these people, right? Yeah. At the end of the movie, the Allied forces are descending on his factory. There's 300 or so Jews out there, and they say, "Here, director, you got to leave. You know, the Americans are coming. They're going to throw you in jail. They're gonna try you for war crimes." And he looks at that prized ring, and he says, "Look at this. Look at this ring. This is pure gold. I could have saved 2 more people." Right? Mm-hmm. And so I bought this ring. My wife got it for me when I became superintendent. It's just our superintendent's crest. I didn't win an award, but it's my Schindler's List moment. Sure. So when times are tough, I would look down and say, I can save 2 more people today. Tom, I can save 2 more people today. I can save 2 more people today, right? And that's the reminder. And so while I'm at Lincoln, man, I'm changing lives. I got great people around me. I have a phenomenal community. We started doing those Friday night lights. They started out on Thursday. We won all of them. Yeah. You know, over 1 million people in the Birmingham area saw our school. They saw our band. They saw our cheerleaders. They saw our choir. They saw all the great things we were doing. I had a community family that would come out and cater it for the entire production crew, 50 people, the coaches. We had a great experience. Tyler Watts, Chris Stewart were giving me shout outs all the way up until 2 years ago because they said this was the best high school experience we've ever seen. Small town Alabama. Yeah. Man, we changed kids' lives. We had 60 athletic scholarships in 10 years.
That's crazy out of that school.
Listen,
that's a small school.
We started out 360 kids when I got there. I left it at about 560. But we had a running back at Kentucky. We had a running back at Clemson. We had a lineman at Auburn. We had a linebacker.
Now, you were the principal at Lincoln?
I was the principal.
At Lincoln?
At Lincoln. And we touched every child. Every child had a place to go and an activity to be in and somebody as an adult that cared for them. We transformed the community. It was the best experience of my life. But then I fall in love with the boys, right? Because I see you in the back of my mind. I see Tony Bell from Thompson High School that goes to Auburn in the back of my mind. And I love these boys, right? And I'm thinking, okay, it's time for me to do this for myself. It's time for a family. Yeah. I get married, I have the kids, and they're 16-hour days. Sure. And so I would leave before my children would be awake, and I would come home and it'd be asleep. And I did that for a decade. So I really left because I wanted to have more of a family life because I knew that I would find 5 significant adults to be in my children's life, but I need to be there too.
Need to be one of them, yeah.
So that's part of the reason why I left. And then at the end of your career, as you're making more money, it makes your retirement better.
Oh, there's no doubt. Yeah, I mean, the last 3 years of the highest 3 salaries in the retirement system, you take the highest 3 years in the last 10, you average them out, and that's what your retirement's based on for the rest of your life. Yeah. So joining that system. So tell me when you transitioned into the front office. I say front office, the state front office. What did you do there?
Listen, 2013, I go to Athens, Alabama. Yeah. I'm driving to the last 2 exits in Alabama from Birmingham because leaving my family intact at home was that important to me. Wow. So I drove 1 hour and 47 minutes one way for 2 years.
Why?
Well, because if you're willing to move for the position.
Hold on, I thought you were working for the state.
So I was an assistant superintendent of a local school district first. When I left being a principal, I became an assistant superintendent in Athens City Schools. And then when I left there, they said, well, you need experience in curriculum. I went and did curriculum in Tuscaloosa for a year. So for 3 years, I was a central office employee.
Then state.
For
Athens
City Schools.
And then for Tuscaloosa
City. Okay. And then I became superintendent of Talladega City. Okay. So if you think about
so you went, because you live in Birmingham.
That's right.
you went to Athens for
Yes,
2
sir.
years.
Yes, sir.
And then you went to Tuscaloosa for
a year. Yes, sir.
And then you're going back to Talladega.
I did that for 2
people
years.
Context: an hour and 45 minutes to
Yep.
Athens, an hour, 45 minutes to an hour to Tuscaloosa.
52 minutes to my parking
52
spot.
minutes.
Yes,
52
sir.
minutes.
Yes, sir.
And then how far was it to Talladega from?
That was about an hour because
I was
you
gonna
had to
say,
get
yeah.
off on
Yeah.
the side roads. Yeah. And then a train would catch you. So
Wow.
yeah, but it's just like your father.
Yeah.
So as a head coach, it's just like Jeff Smith. By the way,
Yeah.
Jeff Smith to this day texts me on Father's Day and say, "You are a great father for everybody's
That's
child."
wonderful.
Jeff Smith,
Yes.
Hueytown High School, Wellborn High School,
Yep.
texts me to this day every year. I still talk to those guys.
I do too.
Coach Battles, Little Battles.
Yeah.
I talk to those guys every chance I get because in the early 90s, it was very much like the old days with Coach Cox.
Mm-hmm.
Those coaches were really like your uncles and your fathers. They took care of you.
They were.
And you talk to any of those guys from those great teams at Just Lanier, they'll tell you.
Yeah.
You know, I think about Randy Fuller all the time, who was the superintendent of Shelby County.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the current superintendent of Shelby County is a Hueytown alum.
Who?
His name is Lewis Brooks.
Okay.
He played for Coach Fuller.
Mm.
He was his assistant superintendent, and he's an elected superintendent currently in Shelby County following his coach. So if you don't think a coach's impact on their students and their players is significant, are you kidding me? So my story is not unique. You kick any rock of any athlete that played any sport in Alabama, you're going to find a great coach.
Absolutely.
Right? And they may not have the X's and O's, but most of them have pretty good X's and O's.
Sure.
Right? Because they're strategic and they're good men, but you always have great fruit that comes from the work you do. It's so important to be a good coach.
So incredibly important. I mean, obviously being in college football for 10 years, I can go down from the guys that coached me in college.
That's right.
Watson Brown, Pat Sullivan.
Pat
Sullivan was like a dad to me for years. And then, you know, for 2 years, I was playing against Dad.
That's right. That's right.
And Jeff Smith and Mike Battles were so important in my life. It's so the best Jeff Smith story.
Yeah.
So I was number 8 from the time I came out of the womb.
That's right.
Because Andre Shears in Bessemer was number 8, and I loved Andre. And I was not every picture you see of me a kid is in a Just Lanier number 8 jersey.
I remember seeing you running balls
Yes.
on the field as a little kid at Snit Snyder Stadium.
Wearing number 8.
I remember.
So we walk in, and I'm gonna go play B team football. And Coach Smith called the plays and did everything for B team. And he goes, And so Monday night you walk in and get your jersey like an hour and a half before, you know, and it's just
That's the way it is.
What number you want? I go, well, Coach, I've been number 8 since I was born. He goes, here's 15. He throws me jersey. Look, he throws me jersey number 15.
And you wear it.
And I wore it. And then I go through high school, and 15 is who I was.
Now, I know you. So what you probably said in your head was 8 times 2 is 16 minus me being number 1.
That's
I'm
it.
taking
I'm
15. I'm
That's
taking
me.
15 because I'm
That's
number
me.
1.
That's
what you did.
Yeah.
Messed
So
up.
I love 15.
Yeah.
So, but I love, you're right.
Yeah.
Coaches are incredibly important. I mean,
Well,
just even my dad, who the back end of my dad's life were just incredibly close, because I remember calling as I was taking over the offensive line job.
Right.
He's like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, this is what I'm going to do. He's like, all right, let's do it. And so it wasn't a journey together as much as it was just like he was there with me the whole time.
Correct.
And so
yeah.
you're right. Coaches are incredibly important.
Well, my high school basketball coach is Owen Butts.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So anybody that knows Owen Butts, who went to Lanier to coach.
And was the defensive coordinator my senior year.
So they tricked me into taking girls basketball. We lost every game by 30 points my first year. And by the way, my coach's supplement went to a football coach. So I did it for free, right? The second year, we were beating everybody by 20. Right. And they say I was up for Coach of the Year at Jeffco because it transformed everything. But I did it because I felt like girls need a legitimate experience too.
Yeah.
It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but one of the most rewarding things, because through athletics, you can transform kids' existence, how they see themselves, how they set their goals for life.
Sure.
So it's very important to me.
Very important.
So both my kids play sports.
So you're at Talladega and you're the superintendent at Talladega.
Talladega.
Okay. And this is the back end of your career in teaching. Now, where did you go from Talladega?
So I get a phone call one morning from the state superintendent, Eric Mackey.
Okay.
And he says, I got this thing that I need you to do. It's about 6 o'clock in the morning. I said, I'm listening. He said, I want you to come down. I want you to work in Montgomery. You can stay at home. So I drove from Birmingham to Montgomery.
You
Right?
have hit every,
And
you've hit every geographical.
every corner. And the reason why it's important, right? So if you have an amazing wife that is carrying the load, by the way, my wife is 6'6'1". She played 5 sports. She speaks 3 languages, and she's 98th percentile on every standardized test she's ever taken, right? So my kids are super smart. My wife is amazing.
Yeah.
I just show up and smile.
That's
right?
it.
So I had to make life as easy for her as possible. So I just hit the road, right? But again, that makes for a 14, 16-hour day.
Yeah.
And I did that for almost 5 years. So I get the call. He tells me to come down. I got this hard thing I need you to do. And I'm so grateful that he gave me that experience because it prepared me to deal with every community in Alabama.
Yeah.
So I was doing this during COVID. If you had any complaint or any issue or any problem with anything with the school, you'd call the State Department, you get me. If you call, state government, they transfer you, you get me. We fielded over 6,000 calls and documented everything that everybody needed from COVID until I left, right? We served a lot of people at a really difficult time. So when we were closing schools, that was part of the duties that I was responsible for. When you were buying your protective equipment, I supplied the list of all those things. If you needed support as a child of a military person that was moving through, if you flew over Alabama and stopped for 2 seconds as a student whose parents were in the military and you had a school issue, we fixed it for you.
Wow.
$1.1 billion in economic impact through Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery.
Wow.
And so when those generals want to talk about what was going on with the Montgomery schools, we'd fly to DC and give them a briefing on what's going on. We started Purple Star Schools, which support military students in schools. We did great work to support the children of Alabama.
How long did you do that?
So I did that for 5 years almost. So I drove to Montgomery for 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Athens, Talladega, Tuscaloosa, and then now Montgomery.
Yeah.
What was the hardest job of those?
So the hardest job, let me do the most rewarding job. So the most rewarding job is being in the classroom, transforming the children in front of you.
Okay.
Right? That's the best job. The teacher's job is the best job.
Okay.
As a principal, you can change your practices in the school to save kids' lives.
Correct.
Right? As a district level person or a superintendent, you can change policies that affect the community and children long after you're gone, right? You can build a new school. There's so many things you can do that have sort of a legacy that transcends you when you leave that space. And so as you go up the chain in the hierarchy in education, it becomes more policy and less people. Right. So at the State Department, we deal with policies and we'll deal with initiatives and we deal with big item things. In Montgomery, had a $13 million deficit budget. So that equal people. So there are over 240 souls we had to either through attrition, retirement, or non-renewals, we had to deal with to right size that budget. That was very difficult.
Sure.
That was very, very difficult. And there's a lot of politics that come into things like that too. And it's not for the faint of heart. And you got to be really tough to do politics. And remember, Montgomery Schools is in the capital, which is where Montgomery state, local, and federal politics all come through the capital. So you can just imagine magnifying the politics in Montgomery.
I can't imagine.
Oh, man, it's not for the faint of heart.
Wow.
It's serious business.
Okay, 29 and a half years in public school.
Yes.
Every level you can think of.
Every level.
From a 22-year-old teaching
teacher, coach,
all
you name it. Yeah.
What part of public schools needs to change the most?
There are so many things that we're doing now to recognize and acknowledge any existence that you can think of. I feel like in our time, we focused on, let's take care of our little boys and girls. Let's do whatever we got to do to meet the needs of our boys and girls in the school. There are so many things that we have to take into consideration now. We got to take into consideration what you feel like and how you identify and, what's the common thing now. And there's so many things that I feel like we've lost our ability to focus on the most important thing, which is taking care of the needs of boys and girls. And mental health is so challenging now to try to triage students and teach them high quality standards to prepare them for the future. But then there's so many other distractions that come in along the way that make it very challenging to meet the needs of boys and girls. Our focus is so much wider and so much more shallow than it was before. I think we should just try to get back to focusing on taking care of boys and girls in classes.
When you say focusing on boys and girls, are you talking the strategy of teaching them, or are you talking about all the other factors that go along with a kid being at school for 7 hours a day?
Well, so I want to give you this example. If you think about what happened during COVID, well, the first thing that we realized during COVID was teachers are not insignificant, right? Because most parents have 2 jobs and sometimes 3 jobs. And the only way you can work those jobs is that those children that you love so much go somewhere between 7:30 and 3:30, right? So when we closed schools down, parents couldn't even work if they were essential employees because they had to do childcare. There was no childcare. So we figured out very quickly that the role of the teacher, if nothing else, is, just warehousing kids. We got to have that. So people wanted schools open.
And the economic impact impact of a teacher warehousing a kid.
Oh, just holding the kids. Secondly, what we realized was some children only eat at school.
So yours, let's go back. Yeah. The second most important thing that comes out of your mouth that you realized through 2020 and COVID.
That's right.
Was that the only meal some of these kids eat?
Absolutely.
Is lunches.
Man, you're giving me chills. Absolutely. I had a superintendent near Montgomery that loaded up meals on buses and ran bus routes. Look at those chills.
Oh my God.
Ran bus routes to take children food during COVID. I will always have a place in my heart for that guy, regardless of what he does or says. For the rest of my life, he had the best feeding program in the state of Alabama, right outside of Montgomery. An amazing human being, because we realized white and black, black children, Latino children need food. So he made sure children got food. So we realized that they needed to leave the home so somebody can watch them, and they needed food. Now, before you can do anything else, you got to get them to school and you got to feed them. What about our bus drivers? So we realize now you have these people that are typically older. They like to drive bus because they like to be active, but a lot of them have elevated in age, have underlying health conditions.
Sure.
So now we're putting those people at risk just to get the kids to school, right? So now it's a safety issue too. And then we had to keep them safe and clean while at school. Things like you don't even think about. Drinking out of a water fountain. Shut all water fountains down. No water fountains, right? And then we talk about bringing substances to school. Now every kid's bringing a bottle or a thermos because now you can't drink out of the water fountain. Like, schools changed so much during COVID that we really didn't even look like schools anymore. Right? And so that's part of what needs to change. We need to look like schools. I'm not saying we need to cut out all the programs that we do that help children be successful at school, but the actual connecting and touching and mentoring and pulling them through, and the things that you and I experienced and that your father gave hundreds of boys.
Sure.
Right? And maybe I've touched 1 or 2 in my career. Like, those things are hard to get to because there's so many other things that are legislated for us that we don't get to really control.
Unpack that. Okay. Legislative for us. What does that mean?
Well, it's not uncommon for our elected officials to say, you need to do this.
Right.
And when that happens, what they'll do is they'll draft bills, and those bills become laws, and then those laws become part of our educational expectations. And that's what we have to do. And so you've seen things like the Literacy Act and the Numeracy Act. Our hands are in that because when they pass a law, they send it over to the State Department and we make it look like public education. But those things were legislated for us because a lot of times people think that we're not doing what we could or should be doing, and we're doing all we can just to get them in the building, keep them safe, and feed them.
Let me unpack what you're saying.
Sure.
You're saying that the most important thing, especially in lesser socioeconomic places, the most important thing is getting kids to school, feeding them,
and keeping them safe.
Hey,
man, you got to love on them.
So, but what I'm hearing you say is that it's almost like the school part of it is tertiary.
Look at you.
I mean,
I like that. Primary, secondary, tertiary. I love that. But so it is not.
I learned that at Hueytown.
Hey, man, that's not bad. Who was that? Miss Trammell taught you that, right?
Exactly.
Shout out to Miss Trammell. Hashtag Elizabeth Trammell.
That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are so many expectations that are put on us that, we're not just reading.
On us.
as educators. See, I still talk about,
Sure,
talk
no,
about
I agree
myself
with you. You did
like
that
I'm a
longer than
school
you have
teacher.
anything.
Hey, man,
Yeah.
listen, if you call me coach, that's a badge of honor.
That's right.
There's just so many things that are expected of us. And it's just really, really hard to do the thing. And let me tell you, mental health challenges for adults in the building has risen, right? So now we're not only talking about the mental health, wellness, and well-being of children, we're talking about the mental health, wellness, and well-being of our staff.
Yeah.
You cannot forget about that. One of the divisions that I oversaw at the State Department was the wellness and well-being of young people and staff. Right. So we have employee assistance programs that a lot of big districts have that can triage adults when they're having trouble. We have mental health service coordinators in schools that are like social workers that triage resources and supports for students and families. There are so many layers now that we didn't have before.
Well, okay. So let me ask you a question. So it feels like, where was all this stuff in the 80s and even the early 90s?
Yeah.
Why are we dealing so much with the mental health? And I don't want to play, I don't want to play that down. Why are we dealing with the mental health now? And we didn't have that in 86 or 94. What's the difference?
Well, if you look at schools, you're not going to like my answer.
Yeah.
Schools are microcosms of the community.
Okay.
The communities are snapshots of the U.S. So as you look at what's going on in the U.S., and around the world, because we have an interglobal dependency now, and you look at how we interact with people that come from all over the world now to where we live. Listen, we are the Detroit of the South now with auto industry. We have Mercedes, we have Hyundai, we have Honda, we have Toyota engines up north. We got all kinds of stuff going on. You have all kinds of people and culture from all over now in Alabama, right? Which typically, historically, has not been as diverse as other parts of America. But as the world changes and as America changes, the state changes and your communities change, so your schools have to change. And people are different now. And the struggles that they have and the challenges that they deal with and the things that they battle, all of that stuff, you have 24 access to anything you can imagine all the time. I couldn't imagine being a history teacher now and someone raising their hand and, Mr. Roller, is it true that Genghis Khan had, man, there's no way in the world I would know if he had a sixth toe on his foot. I don't know, right? But they can find so much random information from all over, right? And so they have access to everything. And with that access, right, Pandora's box. So you open up that access to information, you open up that access to
It's not just positive information, it can be negative.
It changes everything. Right? There's so many challenges and obstacles and barriers in schools now. It's really hard to do what we set out to do, which is taking care of boys and girls in a classroom.
Okay. In 2017.
Okay.
So let me give you the snapshot and you probably know this, but I want to give it to everybody listening. So I graduated from college.
That's right.
I knew I wanted to coach college football. I tried for 2 years. My last 2 years of college, I tried to get a college job because I knew I was coming out. Could not get a college job. I go to Atlanta and teach high school in Atlanta. Taught special ed, coach football. Got to coach with my dad.
That's right.
So played for my dad and then coached with my dad for 2 years.
That's right.
Wonderful experience. That's a whole nother episode. From there, I moved to Raleigh, North Carolina. I was at NC State for 2 years. Got my master's. Coached ball. Worked 90 hours a week. My wife worked 75 hours a week.
Wow.
Worked for a pro boss who Mark Tressman, shout out to Mark Tressman. He's a wonderful mentor of mine, extremely hard on me. Probably doesn't even remember my name at this point because it's 20 years ago, but Mark Tressman was an incredible impact on my life.
It's amazing.
We get fired, just like all college coaches do at some point.
Yeah.
And we moved to Tennessee. Coached college football there with Watson for 6 years. Loved that. Transitioned out of that. During this time, we start having humans.
That's right.
So we moved back to Birmingham.
That's hard.
Yeah, it is hard. We moved back to Birmingham in 2017. I've got, oh gosh, how old is John? John, I want to say, I think these are wrong, but I want to say 8, 5.
Wow.
John is 8, Tegan's 5, George is 1.5, 2.
Wow.
And we started looking at where we were going to live.
Correct. Yeah.
Mark calls, come do the food for the college. Great. So we at this point are trying to figure out, we've got 3 humans.
That's right.
We know that they're going to at least be into sports because of our background, 2 college athletes. And so we start looking. Now, and this is a long explanation.
Yeah.
This is a long question for you. So we start looking.
That's right.
Where do we want to live?
Correct.
School is important, but I'm going to be honest with you. School and the education part of school has went down, in my opinion, for me.
Got it.
Okay. Sports are incredibly important.
That's right.
Because of what you said the whole time we've been on here.
That's right.
A coach has more impact sometimes than a parent.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially more than a teacher.
Absolutely.
So we started doing the research online. And here's what I found. Every study, every list, every chart, everything, there were 5 schools.
Yeah.
There are probably 40 in the Birmingham metro area of places to live.
Sure.
But there were 5 schools that kept popping up.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go through them.
Yep.
Mountain Brook.
That's right.
Vestavia. Hoover.
Yep.
Trustful.
That's right.
And then there was a mix of Chelsea was kind of popped in there some.
Oak Mountain.
Oak Mountain popped in there some.
Spain Park.
But like number 5 was a kind of a wild card. But here's where we are.
Yeah.
Hoover, Mountain Brook, Vestavia, Homewood, Trustful.
Yeah.
Those are the schools.
Homewood, definitely. Yeah.
So here's my question. Of the 30 or 40 in the Birmingham area, why are those, and even traditionally, of the 30 or 40 schools in the Birmingham area, from an educator standpoint, why are those 4 to 6 schools better than everybody in everything?
Here's what I'll tell you about the top 5. Homewood, Hoover, Vestavia, and Mountain Brook. You hit those all the time. Homewood, Hoover, Vestavia, and Mountain Brook. You hit those all the time.
Yep.
Trustful's in there. Shelby County's in there. Right. So you hit those all the time.
They're good in everything, Terry.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Band. Are you kidding? I want to say.
Men's and women's sports.
Listen, Homewood.
Education.
I think Homewood's done Macy's probably 15, 20 times.
Yeah.
Right? 200-300 kids in the band. Absolutely. Listen, Vestavia's biggest problem right now is finding tuxedos for their 6'5", 350-pound linemen in show choir. Did you hear what I said?
Yeah.
6'5", 350 show choir kids at Vestavia, right? So they do activities that include all kids.
Okay.
When you do that, kids want to be there. See, we're now in the business where we have to market our schools to not only attract people, but to keep the ones you have. Because see, a family will move into your community for your elementary schools, but they only stay for your high school.
That's true.
So you got to make sure that you're building things that they want to be with. Dickie Barlow in Mountain Brook, are you kidding me? People love him. They don't stay because of him. They stay because of his commitment to the work. People will come to a school district where you value and invest in the school district, right? All of those places you name, tremendous commitment community-wise. City government, oh, look at Alabaster. Do we need to talk about Alabaster City Schools? Alabaster City Schools values and has a commitment and pumps into their school district. Go have a look at the University of Alabaster.
Yeah.
Right? It's beautiful.
Thompson University is awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right?
So my dad said this
It's the investment. You got to put the investment into your school district.
My dad said this years ago. And it did not mean anything to me at the time. Because at one point, I was going to go be a high school coach.
Correct.
He looked at me and he said, son, if you ever go coach high school, you got to go to a high school where you're the only show in town.
Yeah.
I said, what do you mean? He said, you need to go to a city school. Let me back up. Because when I was a kid, city schools
That's right.
were Birmingham city schools.
Okay.
Parker, Ramsey,
Yep.
Carver,
Yep.
Phillips.
Yep.
They were not good schools.
Okay.
They were not like schools you would send your kids to.
Okay.
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 But he said, you want to go to a city school.
Okay.
But if you look, all of those schools are city schools.
Yeah.
They broke away from the conglomerate.
Sure. Yeah.
Shelby County, Jefferson County, Birmingham City, whatever, and they run themselves. Trustful used to be a Jefferson. Trustful used to be a Jefferson County school.
Correct.
Vestavia used to be a Jefferson County school. Homewood.
There are 12 school districts at Jefferson County.
There you go.
Right. And so at one point there was one county district. Correct.
So what it tells me is that being able to govern a smaller number of humans in a smaller number, a smaller system is more effective than the big piece. So question is this, why, like even Bessemer, I'm going to be honest with you. They kept my dad, and my dad got to do the things he could do.
That's right.
At a predominantly black
Correct.
school because they were the only show in town. I remember this, and you probably don't even know this story. My senior year, I go to play for Dad.
Oh, I remember.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So Dad hires a guy named...
I remember what your hair looked like when you left.
Dad hires a guy named Todd Stroud in January. Have you heard this story? So Todd was the head coach at University of West Alabama.
Got it.
And leaves there.
Okay.
He didn't have a job. Leo Wright.
Yeah, I know Leo.
Leo hired Todd, and Leo called my dad. Hey, coach, I need you to hire this guy. He's really good at football, but he's killing me on insurance because I'm feeding 5 kids. Whatever.
Yeah.
So my dad hires Todd.
Yeah.
Now, let me say this. I love Todd Stroud. Todd Stroud got me into college football. So I am indebted to Todd Stroud the rest of my life. But here's what happened. Todd goes through spring practice. He trains us. He's an unbelievable strength coach. We are in the best shape I've ever been in my senior year. It's unbelievable. He can identify with white, black. He is awesome.
Yep.
Okay. He works at the University of Miami now.
Okay.
The first day of school, Don Walker, the principal, walks in and says, Cox, you talking to Stroud?
Yeah.
He goes, no. He goes, he done gone. He's like, what? Todd Stroud took a $60,000 pay raise to go to the University of Memphis.
Wow.
Who did my dad hire?
Wow.
Owen Butts.
Wow.
But my dad would have not been able to do that.
Correct.
Had he been in Jefferson County, Shelby County, or whatever. He went down there. He talked to Nicholson. He said, I want to hire this guy. And he goes, what's happened? He said, Todd left. I need to hire this guy. He says, okay.
Go do it.
Hey, Owen was at practice that afternoon.
How about that?
So and all that's a huge story. This is not going to mean a lot to anybody else. But like, the power of a small system, a one high school system, a two high school system.
Correct.
Is incredibly important.
Correct.
Of all the places that you dealt with.
I want to touch one thing though. You mentioned the Birmingham City scenario.
Yeah.
So I have to say this.
Do it.
There's a guy named Mark Sullivan. Shout out to Mark Sullivan, superintendent of Birmingham City. Mark Sullivan has, I'm getting chills again. Zoom in on that. Mark Sullivan has Birmingham City. Here's what we're doing. Here's how we're moving forward. Commercials running during the Olympics. He's got all their initiatives and programs running during the Iron Bowl. He's been in the New York Times. He's been in all of these national publications about the amazing work he's doing, because I want to paint this picture. Can you imagine a community of 23,000 students, predominantly urban minority population with, second, third generation folks raising pre-K and kindergarten kids, underlying chronic health issues, 2 or 3 issues, high blood pressure, diabetes, whatever, all these issues, and they're trying to get kids in school, not get them sick, and not bring that back home to that great grandmother that's raising them.
Right? The 7-year-old.
Oh, yeah. The 5-year-old, right? That the great grandmother's raising, right? So here's a guy and his team in Birmingham City. Man, my heart is way over full for Mark Sullivan, because he and his team figured out a way to educate and move some of the most vulnerable children in Alabama with some of the most chronic health conditions in a community with chronic health issues, and he moved them forward during COVID. You can look it up. He has some of the most amazing stories to share about how they did great work. So even though it's an urban district and it's a city district, and they have all of these things outside, tertiary issues that affect a school within the community. It's a microcosm of the community. You got all of these things going on. He did amazing work under some of the most adverse and dire conditions. He did a phenomenal job. I had to say that.
Yeah.
Right? I had to say that.
Is there a ceiling on what he can do because of this? Because my dad used to say this all the time. At some point, son, it all gets back to money.
Yeah.
Does he have a ceiling because of A, the size, and B, the socioeconomics of the place he's working?
Sure. Well, he's doing some really cool stuff, internships for students, and subsidizing transportation to get kids to train and shadow and mentor in companies. He's doing things to put workers back into the community. He's partnering with the mayor, Mayor Woodford.
Who's awesome.
They're doing things to get workers in the community. They're doing great work in Birmingham. So it's fun to see, right? Because it is a challenge.
Sure.
But this is the part that you can never lose focus or sight of. You see this, Tom?
Yeah, that's right.
That's pure gold, my friend. I could have saved 2 more people. 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 These guys are going in there every day with their teams, and they're trying to save 2 more people. Obviously, you live in an upper middle tax bracket. You know, you're paying 40 and 50 additional mills, you know, to bring local resources to your school and your community. You want for nothing in those places, right?
Sure.
But the love for the children and the desire to help them be successful so that you can transform the life of a kid like me, who can in turn go out, like the kids your dad touched, and touch the lives of others. That work is immeasurable. And that's going on all over the state. It's going on in the Black Belt. It's going on in Hale County. It's going on in Montgomery County. It's going on in Huntsville City. It's going on all over, not just in the top 5. Shelby County was the fastest growing county in America in the early 2000s when I was there, and they were killing it in everything they touched.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's not just the big cities that are doing it, but you have more flexibility, right? Because you have a high school.
Yeah.
Right. But if you have multiple high schools, you got to share those resources.
And I think that's the biggest thing is, like my dad used to always say, you know, they can pay the head coach what they want to pay them.
Oh, that's right.
They can pay the principal what they want to pay them. And in turn,
that's right.
You probably in some ways get not a better, but sometimes you will get a better so-and-so because of just the dollars. Yeah. I've got a topic that is really difficult.
Let's do it.
And you're in this world.
Okay.
What are your thoughts? And I don't know that we've seen this in Alabama yet.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on these transgender kids playing sports?
Yeah. Well, I can only say that I have not dealt with that in Alabama. I will say that I served on the central board for the Alabama High School Athletic Association as an appointment from Dr. Mackey, and we work with the coaches in setting the rules and the principals with setting the rules for Alabama. And there was a strong voiced opinion. And then legislatively, you know, there was some work done outside of us saying that that was not something they were going to support in Alabama. I'm a girl dad, right? My daughter's 3-time All-State high jumper, right? She did it for fun. It was really good at it. I wish she kept doing it. You know, my son plays lacrosse and football and basketball. And, you know, I don't care if he carried a tube. I'd support him in whatever he does. But I believe all students should have an opportunity to participate and compete where it's appropriate for them at that age and that development for them. And so I'm for students having an opportunity to compete, but I think there's some rules set outside of us legislatively that will keep that from being a thing in Alabama.
If your daughter was to finish second in the state to someone that was born male, would that upset you?
Man, that'd be tough. That would be really tough, you know, but I mean, our world's evolving, Tom. These are things that we see on a world stage. Yeah. These are things that, you know, are coming close to home, but we just haven't dealt with it in Alabama. That I don't know where we are with, with the Athletic Association, but that'd be tough. That'd be
really hard for me too.
Yeah, that'd be really tough.
Educational question.
Yep, lay it on me.
Let's talk homework.
Oh, man, I saw your little piece on that.
I hate it. And here's why I hate it. And I know my wife got on me a little bit about that post.
Yeah.
Is it feasible for a kid to learn at a high level and not come home with homework?
So practice makes perfect, right? But imperfect practice does not make perfect. So if you don't know how to do it and you're at home practicing it wrong and your parents can't help you, that's not helping you either.
Sure.
Technology is just so amazing now. I have not penned an email since November of 22 because of ChatGPT. Right? There's so many things you can do to accentuate and enhance the things that you do. Things like Khan Academy, you can, you know, type in a search almost like a YouTube, and it pops up a video on how to work a quadratic equation, right? We didn't have any of that. So there's so many resources out there, but for parents that aren't educated on it and don't have access to it, don't have high-speed internet, there were places we found during COVID from the State Department, we found that, you know, they still had dial-up. Can you imagine having dial-up? So if you tried to download a 40-page packet for 2 weeks of work, they could never download the work, right? So the governor's done an amazing job of pumping money into the innovation zones and building infrastructure to get high-speed internet to rural places. But there are folks out there who don't even have access to the resources, let alone know how to deploy them when they get them home. So we always talk about, as a school leader, being aware of what your community has access to and what they're capable of doing, and setting your structure to be able to support your parents with what you're asking them to do at home.
Sure.
Right? If my wife were not an elementary and middle school teacher during COVID, I don't know what we would have done, because some of those math problems, man, got me scratching what little hair I had out, right? But yeah, so you got to be mindful and cognizant of what your resources and the ability of your community are as you're developing your framework of what you want people to do at home.
Retired from the state.
Yep.
Got your retirement. You're working the private sector now.
Correct.
Tell me exactly what you're doing.
We support teachers at being the best teacher they can be. So we come in and we do professional development with teachers, assistant principals, and principals. We do instructional audits in schools, so we can come in and kind of evaluate the programming that you have. We do high leverage.
Who is we?
It's called Bailey Education Group.
Okay.
It's based out of Ridgeland, Mississippi.
Yeah.
It's an awesome company. It's spreading to about 10 different states. So we're going to be more than just a Southern thing. We may be Southeastern, and just really doing good work. The owner, Gary Bailey, is an architect, and he was doing school work, building a school or an addition to a school, and walked by a child and said, man, every child should have a fair shot at getting what they need to be successful. So he got together with a group of buddies and they opened this educational division. So it started out as an architect's firm that did school construction. And then it branched out to educational services. Oh, yeah. So it's about an 18-year-old company based out of Mississippi, and we're in Alabama, Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee. And we're going down into Florida and a couple other states.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Give me a school that I would know that you that you work with.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One that you would probably know, probably closest that I can think of right now, we're in Fairfield, Bessemer.
Okay, so let's just take Fairfield.
Yeah.
Fairfield. Fairfield schools. Fairfield calls Bailey and says, "We need help with this."
Yes. So if you say,
lay out how they hire you.
So let me give you an example. Here's a great example. So right now there's a national teacher shortage, right? It's not just an Alabama teacher shortage.
National.
So you're hiring people to come into the classroom that are working on their teacher certification. We can stand side by side with those novice, in the process of being trained folks.
Right.
Show them where to find the standards, how to break down the standards, how to develop lessons from the standards, model those lessons for them, let them do the lessons, give them feedback after they do the lesson, give a corrective action from that, and then go back and let them try it again. So we can stand side by side with those novice teachers while they're learning the craft of the art of teaching.
So you're going to go in and stand side by side with someone that's paid to be a teacher, and you're going to be like a mentor to them they're doing this.
In the field. So
Susie's got a job. Susie's the fourth grade teacher at Fairfield Elementary School.
Sure.
And Terry comes in and meets with her and teaches her how to be a better teacher.
Absolutely.
And that's the company you work for.
That's it. And we do tutoring. We do assessment preparation. We do data reviews. So all your data dumps back into the warehouse system. You pull it down. We show you how to pull it down. We analyze the data. We draw our inferences from it. We help you make plans. We help you put your long range plan in. We do strategic plans with that. We'll do tutoring for ACT. We'll do all of those things. So everything that touches the teaching learning side of a school, we can support you in all of that. We do assistant principal training. We do principal training. There's a new principal act that came out that said you have to do 5 days of high leverage training on 5 different standards. We're taking contracts to train principals and assistant principals to be better at their craft. And that part I love. I probably mentored over 100 principals for 2 decades for free, because I had an old guy tell me, you got to be willing to do a job for free that you want to be paid for one day. And so I just gave back to people as part of my service, right? I'm just going to help mentor you because I didn't have a lot of people that helped me along the way in the business. So I just give it away. Let me help you. And so I still do that now. I mentor people all the time for free, and eventually it may turn into business. But if not, you help children. All right.
What is the hardest job in a school system?
Clearly the hardest job is being a principal, right? Because you started out as a lover of teaching children, and now you have to manage adults. Right. So
that's a great way to say it.
I started out loving third graders, But now I'm working with third grade teachers, right? And I believe you're born to teach. I think you get lost and go off and do business and other things, but you eventually come back. But I think great teachers were born to do. I was born to do this. I was born to touch the lives of children in a positive way, right? I was born to do this. I was born to do this. And so for me, it's always been easy because all the other things were just minor distractions because the end goal was, am I doing things that's transforming the lives of children? So for me, principal was great for me, but it's a really difficult job. If you're in the middle and high, 12 to 14, 16-hour days in the August, it's 105 degrees at kickoff at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
You're up there in the field house, making sure everything's ready in the press box, and there's toilet paper in the bathroom, and then you're still on the field taking the money to the bank at 11 p.m. So they're long days. It's a really tough job. And then the way that people see us now, a lot of people don't outwardly display the affection and the love for teachers that we had, right? Owen Butts is one of the toughest human beings I've ever met in my life. We still meet up over the course of 25 years of his players, one day a year, and go sit down and have lunch and tell Owen Butts stories.
That's awesome.
Right? That's because he was a teacher, right? Yeah. Not just a coach.
Not just a coach, yeah.
Right? But he was a teacher and a coach. And as a coach, he was a teacher.
Yeah.
We love him. And people come from all over to come sit down and have a burger and eat fries and tell Owen Butts stories. And we tell the same stories.
Same stories every year.
Yeah, right?
Talk to me about, because I've developed a different opinion on college.
Sure.
The price of college has risen so dramatically.
That's right.
Whereas the amount that people are getting paid when they leave college has risen insignificantly.
Got it.
Great example.
Got it.
2003, I was paid about $36,000 as a first year teacher.
That's about right.
That was 22 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
about right.
How much, I'm not asking a question rhetorically, how much is the price of college going up?
Sure.
But what is a first year teacher going to make today? So what, 38 or 40?
So it's mid 40s.
Yeah.
Right. And there's some things in place legislatively, and at the State Department, they put a thing together called the Teams Act. So as you continue to get experience and certification and degrees, there's additional money on the back end.
Sure.
There's additional money for certain positions and subjects that you teach. There are other incentives in place. Some people are paying for certifications and degrees within their district. They're doing that locally. So we've done a really good job of finding ways to recruit and retain people to kind of offset some of those deals. Some of the principals' contracts are very attractive. Yeah. You know, like you said, coaching salaries have gone up. There are coaches that make six figures.
Listen, have you heard about, and I hope this is accurate because this is what I've heard. Have you heard about the coaching staff at Gulf Shores High School?
So Gulf Shores just recently broke out, made their own school district.
They did.
And they are doing very, very well. Very well.
So they've got 3 former college and pro football coaches.
Oh yeah.
On the one staff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like Mark Hudspeth, Brian Van Gorder, and like there's another dog down there that's just like, and these dudes are making over $100,000 a year.
Well, and that goes back to what you said about being a city district.
Yeah.
And so when you put that investment into public education in your city, it's going to yield a return. You're going to get high quality people. You're going to get outstanding performances and results from students, and people are going to come to where you are. We've got to do the best job that we absolutely can in K-12. That's what we call it, from kindergarten to 12th grade. In K-12 public ed, we've got to do the best job that we can to market the great work that we're doing. Great example, Birmingham. Ramsey's been leading the way for a long time, academically
and athletically.
Right? Shout out to Ruben, big state championship.
Yeah.
He was over at Ramsey when he first started football again. You know, just great program, girls and boys basketball. And so there are people that are doing a really good job. I'm reminded about Winona just last year, outstanding state tournament win in flag football for girls.
Yeah.
You should see them, Tom. You think you hit me hard in church the other day when you gave me that bear hug?
Yeah.
You ought to see these girls in flag at Winona. It is unbelievable. It is so much fun. So we're doing a really, really, really good job of finding activities and programs to connect children to programs and adults in schools. And as a system and as a state, we got to continue to do that if we want to attract people and students and the investment into our schools and our community.
Here's what I'm hearing you say. 8 to 3
That's right.
is necessary.
That's right.
3 to 6 is probably more important in some ways.
Essential.
It's essential.
It's essential.
So what I'm hearing you say is like when you were at Lincoln, every kid was involved. And not just 8 to 3. We got them involved in the show choir, in the band, in football, and whatever. And that was part of what transformed that district.
That's right. That's right.
You've even made a comment about Vestavia, about how the 6'5", 300-pound football player is being in the show choir.
That's right. That's right.
So I want people to hear this. How essential is time in schools after school? How essential is that?
Let me give you this title that they've coined in education. They call them edu idols, right? 2 of my edu idols are Principal Kafele and Todd Whitaker. Hashtag Principal Kafele, hashtag Todd Whitaker, right? I went to a talk at a national conference in about 2004. Todd Whitaker said, you know, put a piece of butcher paper up on the wall, and on that paper, put a dot that represents your student body. So we'll say 560 dots. And on that dot, you write the name of all of your staff. On that paper, you put all the staff names. Also on that paper, you put every activity and program in your school. Every dot represents a child. Every adult needs to touch a dot. Every activity needs to touch a child. Every child needs to touch an activity. And all the adults and all the activities and all the children and all the dots need to all be connected. And when it's over, it's this intertwined web.
The web
of everybody in every program touching adults, children, and activities. When you do that, you'll have a great school. And a lot of people never get there, right? I never made it to great, right? I felt like I was good-er, right? I know that's not correct grammar. But I felt like we were good. And sometimes we were gooder than before. But we never made it to great. There's some guys out there that do a phenomenal job. There's a guy named Mike Turner at Pinson Valley High School. You know Bo Nix, Pat Nix, you know Kool-Aid McKinstry, and all the other guys, right? He does a great job of connecting dots.
And that's a Jefferson County school.
Man, that's a Jefferson County school. That's a Jefferson County school.
But that principal, athletic director, head coach, is making the dots come together.
Hiring quality coaches.
Yeah.
He talks about softball all the time. He's talking about choir all the time. He's talking about band all the time. You got to talk about all of those things that people may have thought were not significant, but they are to a child. So connect all children to all adults, to all programs in your school, and you're on your way to great.
I love that.
And people that do that have tremendous results in their school. I just left Randolph County last week. Way, 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 way out there. East Alabama.
I know exactly where it is, yeah.
I want to say hello to my man, John Jacobs out there. What an amazing staff of people that do a great job of loving on and touching kids. Michael, the bus driver that I met in front of the building, man, I'm the first person that these kids see. I'm going to love on them and I'm going to treat them nice. And then I want to think about the guy that's telling me bus driver jokes. He has a joke for every kid when they get on the bus. I'm like, who does that?
Who does that?
So think about it. The first person that sees your children when they get on the bus is telling them jokes.
And making them laugh.
Are you kidding me?
That's good.
Do you know how hot it is on a bus in August and you're 5 years old and it's your first day and you fall asleep on the back and we got to go find you. We ask you where you live. You say in a house. We say, what's your mom's name? You say mommy.
Mommy.
You know how hard it is to get 5-year-olds home, right?
Yeah.
But these guys are committed to doing great work, even in their role as a bus driver.
Yeah.
All adults, to all programs, to all children. Wow. And you're on your way to great.
Last question.
Yes.
The University of Alabama has proven that sports
That's right.
creates dollars.
That's right.
That sports brings people together.
That's right.
That sports increases good sports is the proverbial tide.
That's right.
No pun intended.
That's right.
That rises up.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I feel like we're in an arms race athletically. Who can build the nicest workout room? Who can build the nicest indoor facility?
That's right.
Who can build the best gym? Who's got the biggest jumbotron?
That's right.
Are you seeing that around the state of Alabama?
So there, you will see what you look for. Okay. 2009, we had a 22,000 square foot indoor practice facility with turf. We passed a local tax initiative.
Where?
In Lincoln, Alabama.
Wow.
And we built that. We had turf on our playing field.
Yeah.
We were a Title I district with turf on our field because our parents came together. Now, we built libraries and we built playgrounds. We built extensions to the building. We did all of that. But they also wanted softball, baseball, 8-lane rubberized track, brand new track equipment, right?
All that.
And we invested in the things, and we were a 3A, 4A school, right? But I stack up. I challenge you, get off exit 168, I think, Highway 77, turn left, go north, 3.2 miles, and go have a look at that. Still, from 2008, 9, it is still a beautiful facility.
Right.
So if that is your desire and that is your goal and that is your wish, you can transform your community to meet the needs of your children, and you can have all adults touching all children and all programs, and you're on your way to great.
When I was in Georgia, taught there,
Mm-hmm.
we had a thing in Cobb County, splost.
Okay.
It was a tax.
Okay.
It's 1%. But every dollar of that 1% in Cobb County went to school facilities.
I love it.
And I was only there 2 years, and I was a 22 and 23-year-old kid.
That's right.
But let me tell you something, Terry. It helped those communities. I'm talking like you had some of these schools, Walton High School,
That's right.
which had at the time 700,000, 1.2, $1.5 million homes.
Wow.
And then you had Wheeler High School that was not.
That's right.
Same school district. But the facilities at these places
Amazing.
were amazing because the people voted and said, yeah, we'll do that.
Well, people have forgotten about the 1-cent sales tax in Jefferson County. That's where all of your field houses are in Jefferson County and Birmingham City. There's some innovative people out there doing
It's a great thing. I want to encourage people.
That's right.
And I don't care if your kids are not there. I don't care if your kids are not there, if your kids are gone.
Correct.
If you can have a tax that will help your schools,
That's right.
facility wise, whatever, in any way, you need to vote yes. And I'm not political at all.
That's right.
And neither are you.
That's right.
But if you can do that, because I've seen it, Terry. I've seen a turf field be put in.
That's right.
That allows every sport to be on there, hot, cold, wet, dry. Because used to, if it was wet,
You had to get off the field.
you couldn't get on the field.
So let's say this. This is how important this is to me. So I'm going to look right in the camera as we close.
Yeah.
When it comes to supporting your schools and education, I'm going to say, you see this? Look at this ring. It's pure gold.
That's right.
I could have saved 2 more people. I could have saved 2 more lives. I could have saved 2 more people.
Yeah.
Man, thank you for having me.
Man, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much. If someone needs you, someone's watching this in the school system.
Absolutely.
And they have a question, they need help, whatever. Where can they reach? Because you've got 47 emails. That's an inside joke.
Absolutely.
Tell me where someone can reach you guys.
So you can find us on BaileyEducation.com.
Okay.
And you can find my email, hit that, and it'll come to me, and we'll reach out to you.
Perfect.
Yeah, man. Thank
Terry,
you so much.
Mr. Roller.
I love you.
Mr. Roller, I love you. Thank you.
man. I love you.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
All right.